This one's going to be a special one. We're going to talk to Assaf on his way to work. Just reminding you, it's a 7-hour difference in Israel. So 4 o'clock in the morning there right now. So Boker Tov, Assaf. I got all the wines behind me. And my background tonight, I chose especially for Assaf because I know this gentleman loves trees. I live in the forest. So I love the trees as well. So this is a great picture for Assaf. So nothing more to say except for Assaf, good morning. And what do you have for breakfast?
For breakfast, normally I have very little, but only a piece of bread with a lot of good butter. That's it.
So where are you off to this morning? Tell us about what's going on. Where is the wine this time of the year and what's going on?
So you know that Vitkin Winery is located in the northern coastal area of Israel. It's not an area that you see a lot of vines. We have a small experimental vineyard in the winery, a beautiful vineyard with many varieties. But most of our vineyards are located in the best growing wine regions of Israel. I have to visit every vineyard to check on the quality and to be with hands-on on what's happening because those are both my grapes, and to be a part of every decision that's made in the vineyard. Now is the growing season. That means that every day the shoots of the vines are growing in few centimeters. It's huge. Every day there is a difference. Every morning there is a difference. In the last 2 weeks, I've been almost maybe 3 or 4 times in the Upper Galilee and the Northern Golan Heights to see our vineyards and in the Judean region. So the farmers are getting to a point, so hey, haven't we seen you yesterday, the day before yesterday? This is the season when we see the vineyard practically almost every 2-3 days, because what we're doing now will determine the quality and the quantity of the grapes we're going to have. So I'm basically in the vineyards now more than in the winery.
What's going on with the vines there? What stage are they at? And what's the next step for them?
So the vine it's amazing. It's an amazing plant. In the winter we have the dormant buds, and every bud have all the things that it's need to be as an adult. All the leaves, all the flowers that going to be fruit. Everything is there. You can actually cut it and look it up under a microscope and see the fertility before it's debudding. When the vine's reaching between 12 and 14 nuts, the space between the leaves, the flowers open like a clock, like an alarm clock. It's an amazing stage, and it's a very important stage. If something dramatic happening in the flowering, it can harm the fruit setting, and we will have less fruit or damaged fruit. So it's crucial to see that everything is okay now, that the canopy is well managed, that we don't have too many shoots, and the vines are very homogeneous. There are very few treatments that we do in the vineyards to take care of that. So we basically lower down the quantity because the vine is a very fertile plant. We lower down the quantity. We want between 70% and 50% of the potential yield that we can have on every vine in order to get the right quality.
So Assaf, I'll bring it back to you. And for those of you who want to have the Gewürztraminer, Assaf, give us a little tasting notes on this, would you? The 2018 Gewürz.
We started to produce this wine actually 17 years ago in 2003 when we were just a very small and young winery. I love Gewürztraminer. I know that people are either loving it or hating it. There are two big parties in the wine world. One party is the Gewürz haters, one party is the Gewürz lovers. And I think a lot of people hate the Gewürztraminer because people tend to do it too sweet, too flat, not enough of acidity. I think that the Gewürztraminer have a great potential if you do it in the right way. For me, the right way is dry. When you have too much sugar on it, it's hide things. I was a pastry chef and a baker, as Joshua mentioned. The sugar can hide a lot of things. I like my wines to be dry, clean, focused, and pure on the aromas. And the Gewürztraminer, it's exactly this kind of wine. It have amazing aroma, intensity, and profile. and the fact that we ferment it to dryness, that means that we have all those amazing taste, flavors, and balance right there in front of you. We don't cover them with any sugar. The fact that people make the Gewürztraminer sweet or semi-sweet, it's because this grape have a built-in bitterness. To get the right aromas for the Gewürztraminer, you need to make a skin contact. And normally, if you make the skin contact, you gain, a lot of bitterness. I don't like this bitterness. I like it just like as a very subtle and delicate, I call it the grapefruit skin bitterness, okay? It's an appetizing bitterness. But from my experience, when we give it in the tasting room, it's a wine that unites the two parties that I talked about. It's Gewürztraminer haters and Gewürztraminer lovers love this wine.
The Grenache Blanc that you make. So while we're drinking this, let's talk about that. But also, there's Grenache Blanc, there's Grenache Noir. What exactly is going on in there, and what is Grenache Blanc?
So first, before I'm going to ask this question, the Grenache, I just want to note that our Grenache Blanc, it's a wine that's changed dramatically between the moment that you pour it just fresh out of the fridge, you open the bottle, you pour it, and then when you wait a while, even 5-7 minutes, you don't need to wait 2 hours. Even few minutes after you pour it into the glass, it's warming up a little bit. It's gaining a little bit of oxygen, putting inside, it's absorbing a little bit of oxygen, and the wine is changing dramatically. Every wine changes with temperature, of course, but in the Grenache Blanc, it's a dramatic story. It's like you have two different, totally different wine. So I suggest that people will pour to themselves a nice glass of Grenache Blanc when it's chilled and fresh now. We'll taste it a little bit, we'll smell it and appreciate it now, and taste it after. The Grenache, it's a very ancient variety. It's growing around the Mediterranean for centuries, maybe thousands of years. Its known origin, and I specifically say known origin, it's from the region of Aragon in Spain, okay? And they call it over there Garnacha. The Grenache, it's an ancient variety. You can find it all around the Mediterranean basin. And it's like the Pinot group, which also an ancient variety. You have the Pinot Noir, which is the black Pinot. You have the Pinot Gris, the gray Pinot, and the Pinot Blanc, the white Pinot. It's exactly the same with the Grenache. In the Grenache, you have 3 distinct variants. You have also sub-species and so on, but the main 3 are the black one, the red Grenache, the white Grenache, and in the middle, the gray Grenache. The gray Grenache, it's a very light-skinned grape with a pinkish red color. So a lot of people say, wait a minute, what is the Grenache Noir? It's a new species. No. It's the red Grenache that you know from Châteauneuf-du-Pape, that you know from Priorat. It's the same variety. We specific call it Grenache Noir because we have the Grenache Blanc. Okay.
I've noticed that over the past, maybe 4 or 5 years, white wines and rosés have really started to get popular coming out of Israel. And you're making some excellent ones of these. Can you just quickly touch upon white wines and what you should be eating or drinking, or when you should pair them and when you should be having them?
Personally, when I was asked the same question a couple of weeks ago, and the guy that is a wine writer, is an international wine writer, he asked me, how come Israel have so much excellent white wine and now rosé wine? What's happening? And sometimes even better than the red wines that most of the people know. And I tell them, I think it's when people have technology and they have the knowledge, they start to make better and better wine. But guess what? In the white wine, you put less ego into the wine. This is my psychological explanation, okay? You put less ego into the wine. In red wine, you need it to be black and bold and juicy and creamy and, a big red wine. In white wine, you need to be crispy and fruity. And I think when people make wine minus the big ego, they have better result. This is what happened with my white wine and my Pinot Noir, and lately with my Grenache Noir and the rest of my wines. I try to make the wines serious, focused, excellent, but also delicious. Don't forget about the delicious. And that's what happened with the white wine and the rosé wine. You have excellent white wine and rosé wine from Israel. They are great to enjoy as coffers. They are great to enjoy with food. And even though we are hot climate country, and most of the people say, hey, but the best white and rosé wine will come from a cool regions. No, we can make excellent white and rosé wines in Israel.
What are you looking for when you're tasting a wine? How do you know if you like it? How do you know, like, I think your wines, the part that I like are the journey, the entry level stuff, just gives you an easy approach into wine.
I think that in wine competition, you have to look for specific things, but it changes according to the wine. If you're tasting a wine that you know that costs I don't know, $10, you look for one thing, and if you taste the wine that you know that costs $50 or $100, you will look for something totally different. The only important thing that you need to know that wine competition will give you an idea about the wine, but they cannot tell you if the wine is excellent or not. I think that wine competition are great to expose new producers that you don't know, but you always need to be true to your tastes. I'm going to a wine competition in the last 15 years. I'm going every year in the last 7 years. I'm invited into south of Germany to one of the biggest wine competition in the world, Mundus Vini. I'm one of 2 Israeli judges that judge over there. There are 150 judges from all over the world. We taste 6,000 wines in 1 week. It's really calibrated my palate every time. And it's like a speed date. You need to realize that you have between 10 seconds and 1 minute for every wine you judge. This is not a lot of time.
One more question. While you're talking about the reds, I believe you don't work with Cabernet at all, correct?
No.
And while you're talking about your reds, will you just touch upon that too, please, for me and for everybody?
When we created Vitkin Winery, I was just a freshman. I just came back from my world tour of winemaking. I graduated Bordeaux Faculty of Enology in 2001 after 2 vintages in France, where I made a lot of Cabernet Sauvignon, a lot of Merlot and Cabernet Franc and Petit Verdot, in blends, of course. And then I worked in Northern California, in Navarro Vineyards in Anderson Valley, amazing vineyard. And then in Australia in the Yarra Valley. And I came back to Israel with a lot of insights, a lot of knowledge. And I realized that wine is really a big ambassador of the region, of the country, of the landscape. You taste wine from all over the world. You can maybe say in a way that you taste the countries that the wine are made in. And in Israel, in that stage, 100% of the high-end wines, of the quality wines, were one of the fantastic 4, Cabernet, Sauvignon, Merlot, Chardonnay, or Sauvignon Blanc. And I said, okay, it's nice. There are excellent varieties, but we are located in a warm region, which is not suitable for most of those varieties. And it started to be boring when you're tasting another Cabernet, another Merlot, a blend of both of them. Let's be a little bit more sophisticated. Let's think outside of the box and see what's really growing here and giving exceptional results. I fell in love with the Carignan in 1999 when I tasted it in Bordeaux, actually, from friends of mine that produced it in Spain. And I tasted Grenache and Petit Syrah later and so on. And I came with this idea and I said, it's not only that I want to produce all those varieties that back then in Israel were unknown if it was the best case, but really notorious in the worst case. But I don't want to produce any of the other usual suspects, the other varieties that everybody knows, that like Cabernet, Merlot, and Chardonnay. So it was a very bad business plan, actually. You don't produce what everybody wants to buy and what everybody is expecting you to produce, and you produce the most notorious varieties, basically what everybody hates. And I came like a Don Quixote, like a Don Quixote, or like a big educator, and say, hey, okay, don't stop drinking Cabernet, Merlot, and Chardonnay. They are nice varieties, but open your mind. try a little bit of Carignan, try a little bit of Riesling, try a little bit of Roussanne, Viognier, and so on. And it was very tough. People didn't want to touch Carignan. People didn't want to even listen. The only way to do it, and I did it in Vitkin, and later I did it in Carmel, I just put my hand on the label. I did like a very easy blind tasting. I didn't let them know what they're tasting. When I did a personal tasting, I just hide the details on the wine. They asked, okay, what are we drinking? I said, red wine. Which red wine? And I answered, dry red wine. Give the wine a minute, taste it, check it out if you love it, if you hate it, and so on. Give the wine a chance. And for a few minutes, they tasted it without knowing it's a Carignan, and they fell in love with it. And people realized that you need to open your mind. You need to taste more things, okay? So Vitkin actually is the pioneer of the new Israeli wine revolution. We call it the fourth revolution, of the typicity of the Mediterranean, of let's make something interesting and not copy-paste the world and make something of our own. And the vineyard that's located near Vitkin, it's made of all the local varieties that they discovered a few years ago. So it's like a bank of those varieties, but actually it's also a R&D parcel that we take care of.
If there happens to be a half a bottle left over from the night, what are your suggestions with your wines on how to store them, how to,
I said one thing. If it happens, if you're like a couple of people, you're opening a bottle of wine, if there is a half a bottle left, there is only one thing to do. Change the wine, people. Start to drink more Vitkin. This is not happening with Vitkin wines. When people drink our wines, they finishing the bottle. And this is very important. Drink delicious wine. Don't drink wines for your ego. Don't drink wine, those kinds of wine that you put the teaspoon in the wine and it's standing up because the wine is so thick. Drink up the bottle.
Can you tell us a little bit of how did you decide to become a winemaker? What was your motivation behind becoming a winemaker and switching careers to become a winemaker?
It all started one night when I had this amazing dream. There was this old guy came to me with this white beard. No, I'm just kidding. It's what really happens that I always liked wine. It's as a family we drink normally. We didn't. My parents weren't being wine amateur. Actually, when I was in France, I discovered that they drank up all my collection. They really enjoyed it, so I needed to lock it down. I was a pastry chef because I really like to cook and to make to give people joy and happiness. This was the first way to do it. And after I worked almost 4 years as a pastry chef and a bread baker, I decided I want to go to the next stage. I started to study biochemistry, applied to 3 universities in France. I was accepted to Bourgogne and to Bordeaux, and I decided to go to Bordeaux. I really loved the whole aspects of winemaking. There are so many things. There are the growing of the vines. In Israel, it's the love of Eretz Israel for me. The agricultural side, to meet the farmers, to work the land. After the winemaking, it's a lot of biochemistry. It's a little bit like cooking, You're creating your own flavors. And the cultural side, you meet the people, you see who enjoys your wine. You in close dialogue with those people and how your wine is accepted and how it goes with food and so on. So for me, it's like the best professional in the world for me. It's really, I always say it's combining all my big love.
You seem to be ahead of the trend and you understand what's going on and you understand the grapes. What are you seeing down the pipes for Israel the next 3 to 5 to 10 years? What grapes are you seeing starting to pop up? What varietals are starting to work? And where is the future of the Israeli wine industry, in your opinion, going?
I think that we are in a very exciting stage in the wine business of Israel because we experimenting a lot. We don't have the strict rules that they have in France, the wine laws that they have in Germany or in Austria. So we are free to do whatever we want, wherever we want, and whenever we want. So it allows people to really experiment and find new things, and it's exciting. I see that the new varieties are coming in, and it really excites me to see more and more varieties. Most of them, it's actually, we try them first in Vitkin, like the Marcelin, the Grenache, the Carignan, Petit Syrah. We have today few secrets that I can reveal, like the Macabeo, the first Israeli and the kosher Macabeo, and which is excellent and unique variety. Unfortunately, it's a single barrel, so you can find it only in the winery. But what I think will happen, if people went more and more to the bigger, the darker, the bolder, the denser wines, I think people will realize that actually in the bottom line, you need to drink the wine and you need to enjoy it. And I hope that people, and I think people will open up more to, I don't know if light style, because for me it's not lighter, it's more easier style, not in a way of cheap, easy wines, but more like, if take for example my Pinot Noir or even my Grenache Noir, and even my Red Israeli Journey, if you look on the back label of the Israeli Journey, you will see that it have between 12 and 12.5% alcohol. It depends on the vintage. And it shows that you can get in Israel, you can get an amazing maturity of the grapes if you're working in the right techniques and you harvest intelligently the grapes. You can get lower alcohol wines that have not less richness and color and complexity in them. So I think that will be the trend. People will go for wines that shows more, that but not in a vulgar way, that are a little bit more sophisticated, have more depth, have more structure.
But before we do that, just quickly, a quick note on the Carignan, or did we a tasting note on the Carignan? Because we talked about all the other ones.
So just to go back to the Red Israeli Journey, it's an amazing, delicious wine. It's have a lot of richness. It's not too heavy. It's not too bold. It's an excellent wine. It's like a very good Italian or Spanish or South of France wine that you can enjoy for dinner or for lunch. You don't need to wait too long to open it. It's ready to drink. But from my experience, it can age. If you buy a case of Red Israeli Journey, put like half of it aside and drink every once a year. You will see an amazing evolution in this wine.
Yeah, Assaf, this is Jonathan. I love the Vitkin Red Israeli Journey. It's one of my favorite red wines, and as someone who really likes wine, and most of my friends are not as big wine drinkers as I am, all my friends love it, and we do manage to finish the bottle when it's a Shabbat dinner. I'm curious, how did you come up with the combination of the blend? Because it's such an interesting of the GSC and then finishing it with the Marcelin and Cabernet Franc. Like, what was your process for coming up with the percentages and which varietals? Because it's such an interesting blend, but it pairs really well. It goes down really easily. I can't compliment it enough.
As I told you before, my inspiration was the Mediterranean basin, the Mediterranean neighboring countries. Israel is much similar to south of France and Spain and south of Italy than to Bordeaux and Bourgogne. So first was the Carignan. I made a varietal Carignan before I made the Red Israeli Journey. The first Carignan was in 2002. Way before all the other Carignans popped up. And the first Israeli Journey was produced in 2004. So I wanted to make a blend based on the Carignan, and I tried to complement it with the right varieties. So for me, the Syrah was obvious choice, and a little bit of Grenache that we don't always write on the label, and Marcelin, which pairs beautifully to many things. It's amazing variety, also from the fact that it's not too dominant. If you put too much Petit Verdot or Cabernet Franc, it will show not only in the right way, but Marcelin, it's really feminine in the way that it pairs to other varieties. And the Cabernet Franc was my kick, okay? So the Cabernet Franc was remember that my school was in Bordeaux, and I noticed that if you put it in a very little percentage, around 10%, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, it gives the right spiciness to the wine without controlling it, without taking over. And I want exactly what you described. It's amazing how you put it. Sometimes this is what's amazing about wine. I communicate with you through the bottle. I want to put an idea inside the bottle, and when you open the bottle, you express this idea. It's amazing for me. By the way, I'm excited to tell you that the 2019, 2017, and 18 that you're having in the States are really great. We got so much better with the Red Israeli journey in those years, and when I bottled it, when I started to taste and prepare for bottling the 2019, I was shocked. I think this is the best ever Red Israeli that we made, the 2019, that you don't have it yet, we just bottled it after 8 months of barrel aging. And the proof for me was that my workers, they love wine, and every now and then they take a glass of wine for lunch. And I noticed that the level of the tank in the Red Israeli journey got down a little bit. And I asked them if there is a leak in the tank. They said, no, it's just the Red Israeli this year is so delicious. We drink only from this tank.
Assaf, I want to know, tell me a little bit about the bread that you make. Is it sourdough bread? Is it, talk to me about it.
Josh told me, take a loaf of bread with you. I said, I have it on my house. So there is a little bit of challah that left from a Friday that I made. I like it a little bit, not too sweet. I put, if you like to bake, I put only less than 50 grams of sugar per 1 kilo of this is a sourdough. I don't know how you call the grain in English. In Hebrew, we call it kosmin. It's like a browner type of wheat. It's not a whole wheat. It's a different kind of wheat. It's not rye.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Assaf. You've been great again for doing this. And if there's any other questions out there, otherwise we'll let Assaf start his day and go to work and continue making great wine for us.
Thank you, and it's amazing this Zoom meeting. I hope to meet you one day in person, all in Washington or in Israel and wherever you are right now. And I really hope to go back in business. And of course, everybody keep yourself healthy and strong. And I think this crisis help us understand a lot of things. Beside the loss of jobs and the loss of lives, of course, and the very sad things. I think it teaches us a little bit of humbleness. It teaches us to be more with the family, to enjoy a little bit more a glass of wine. I can tell you the wine consumption in my family more than triple itself in the last few weeks. And normally we don't drink a lot of wine beside the Shabbat and holidays, but maybe 1 bottle through the week, but now it's 4 bottles. So it's happened a lot in other homes in Israel. I hope it's happening as well in the States. But keep this tradition, even when you go back to work, when the routines comes in, keep this tradition. It's an amazing tradition. It's better for your health and it's better for your minds. So thank you very much. Hope to see you in Vitkin soon.